Have you ever felt like there's something inside you that remembers? Something older than your name, older than the language your mouth learned to speak? There are moments, quiet, fleeting, where your chest aches for no reason, and your breath catches like it knows something your mind has forgotten. In those moments, your soul is whispering, calling you back to the ancient rhythm it once knew, back to the pulse of the cosmos that once flowed through your lungs like wind through sacred trees. You were never just a body. You were breath. You were sound. You were vibration wrapped in flesh. But somewhere, along the lines of time and control, you were taught to breathe like a machine, shallow, fast, disconnected, and slowly you forgot. You forgot that every inhale is a message from the divine, that every exhale is a letting go of what you are not. You forgot the language of the soul, and in doing so, you began to vanish into the noise of this world. But what if I told you that the path back has always been hidden in plain sight, that a forbidden breath technique, an ancient sacred ritual, still survives, carried through mystery schools, buried in old scrolls, guarded by silence? Not for control, but for protection, because not everyone is ready to awaken. But you found your way here, and that means something. So take this as your invitation, not from me, but from the part of you that still remembers, the part that's ready to come home. And if something in your chest stirred as you listened, if something in you leaned closer quietly, then honor that moment. Breathe and subscribe to the Spine Gospel, because this is only the beginning. Before books, before borders, before even names, there was breath. And those who remembered its power did not treat it as ordinary. They revered it. In the temples of ancient Egypt, the priests whispered of the Ka, not just life, but divine essence, carried on the breath. They believed that each inhale was a river flowing from the gods, and that through sacred breath one could awaken their divine double, the sleeping, immortal self. This wasn't metaphor. It was technology, but not the kind made of wires or screens. It was spiritual technology, encoded in silence, vibration, and rhythm. Far to the east, in the lands that gave birth to the Vedas, breath was called prana. It was said to ride the spine like a serpent, and those who mastered its movement could open doors within, doors that led to memory, to stillness, to union with the cosmos. But these teachings were never carved on stone for all to see. They were whispered, passed from teacher to student, only when the student was ready to die to who they were. The Sumerians, the Hebrews, they had words too, nishmat chayim, the breath of life. They did not separate soul from breath. To breathe was to host the divine. In the high mountains of Tibet, monks spent decades in solitude, learning how to ignite inner fire through breath. Not metaphorical fire, real warmth, so intense it could melt snow around their bodies in freezing winds. But even more powerful was what came after: visions, memories, and the feeling of coming home to something eternal. So why, if all these traditions saw breath as a sacred bridge, have we never been told? Because the world that rose around us, the one ruled by conquest, colonization, and control, did not want awakened souls. It wanted obedient bodies. And so the breath was stripped of its sacredness, reduced to mere biology, something to ignore until we were panting from panic or silenced by grief. But these techniques were never lost, only hidden, buried in secret texts, guarded by silent lineages, and protected from the noise of a world not yet ready. Bow now. Because when you begin to remember, the teachings return to meet you, and if you listen carefully, your breath might already be trying to speak. Once, the breath was a prayer. Now it's a reflex, unnoticed, unhonored. We live surrounded by sound, by speed, by glowing rectangles whispering urgency. We move faster than our hearts can process, scrolling, chasing, consuming, but rarely breathing. Not really. We've forgotten the sacred rhythm. Our inhales are shallow, our exhales incomplete, and somewhere in the silence between them, the soul fades like a forgotten song. The world taught us to survive, not to feel, to push forward, not to pause. So we carry tension in our jaws, in our necks, in the lungs that never fully open, and we call it normal. But this isn't normal. It's spiritual amnesia. It's forgetting that the breath is how the soul speaks. Most of us breathe 20,000 times a day, yet we remain disconnected, not because we don't know how to breathe, but because we no longer remember why we breathe. When you rush, your breath rushes. When you fear, your breath freezes. When you ignore it, it dims. And slowly, so do you. This is the invisible cage of the modern age, where the body moves, the brain races, but the soul is silent. We've been told that growth means more effort, more striving, more reaching outward. But no one told us that stillness is also a door, that within the breath lies a map back to everything we lost. You may not have realized it, but every anxious breath, every restless night, every ache in your chest has been your body mourning something sacred. And now, something ancient is beginning to stir. Something inside you, older than any memory, deeper than any name, is ready to rise again. But for that to happen, you must begin where you ended, with your breath. What ancient mystics knew in silence, science is only now beginning to understand. The breath is not just air. It is rhythm, chemistry, electricity, a bridge between the seen and the unseen, and ever, by time you breathe with awareness, you shift the entire landscape of your inner world. When your breath slows, your body listens, it signals safety. And the parasympathetic nervous system, what science calls your rest and restore network, awakens. This is when the body heals, the heart calms, and the mind grows quiet enough to hear the soul. There's a nerve, long and winding, called the vagus nerve. It travels from the base of your brain down through your lungs, your heart, your gut, and every conscious breath gently touches it, like a harp string being plucked. This is not just biology, this is how you tune your instrument. The vagus nerve is the thread between your intuition and your flesh. It's the body's divine telephone. Then there's the heart, not just a pump, but a center of intelligence. Science now speaks of heart-brain coherence, a state where the rhythms of your breath, heartbeat, and brain waves move in harmony. In this state, you don't just feel peace, you become a transmitter of it. You radiate a frequency that others can feel without knowing why. And when breath is held in sacred stillness, as taught in ancient techniques like kumbhaka, something begins to shift behind the eyes. The chatter fades, the spine tingles, and deep within the skull, the pineal gland awakens. The pineal, once called the seat of the soul by mystics, is sensitive to breath, pressure, and inner silence. It responds to the inner winds like an ancient compass, aligning you with something beyond the body, a field of vision that doesn't rely on sight. Some say this is where inner light begins, where dreams form, where the body remembers what the mind has forgotten. You see, breath isn't just survival, it's sacred architecture, a coded language of energy, chemistry, and memory. And every conscious inhale is a ceremony, every exhale a surrender. When done, with reverence, breath becomes a ritual of return, not just to peace, but to presence, to the soul that's always been waiting beneath the noise. Not everything was meant to be written. Some things were meant to be remembered. And this breath, was never ordinary. It was a ritual, a return, a secret once whispered in temple shadows and desert caves when the stars were closer and the soul still remembered its name. They called it many things. In Egypt, it was the breath of the Ka, the sacred current that kept the soul tethered to the divine realm. In Tibet, it was the path of the inner wind, lung, used not just to calm the mind, but to retrieve the missing pieces of the self. In the Sufi world, it was the remembrance of the divine with every inhale, a silent zikr carried in the lungs. But it was never shared carelessly, because it was powerful, and power, unprepared, becomes destruction. The technique begins not with the lungs, but with intention. Before breath, there is stillness. Before sound, silence. You must come to it not to control, but to surrender. Sit upright, spine like a sacred pillar. Let your hands rest, not in effort, but in offering. Close your eyes, not to shut the world out, but to open the world within. Then breathe, not to survive, but to remember. Inhale through the nose slowly, as if drawing ancient light from the stars into your chest. Let it fill the sacred chamber behind your heart. Pause, not in panic, but in presence. Hold that breath as if it were the name of God itself. Feel it echo down your spine. Let it stir the dormant frequencies beneath your ribs. And then, exhale. But not just air. Exhale the weight, the noise, the forgetting. Let each breath become a journey, a spiral inward, a gentle knocking at the door of the soul. This was the technique they hid. Not because it was dangerous to the body, but because it awakened the part of you they could never control. And now it's here, not as a method, but as a memory. If your spirit stirs while reading these words, it means you've done this before, not in this life perhaps, but somewhere between the stars and the skin. So breathe, like something sacred is watching, because it is, and it's been waiting for you to return. When the breath begins to remember, so does the soul. Not with fireworks, not with noise, but with a quiet hum, like the sound of something ancient clicking back into place. This is not transformation. This is return. The frequency of your being, buried beneath layers of noise, memory, and expectation, begins to vibrate again. Like an old instrument, dusty, forgotten, suddenly playing a melody only you can hear. Some people weep, not because they're broken, but because something sacred has been touched, because they realize they were never disconnected, only distracted. Others see visions, not dreams, but memories from before they were born. Light, symbols, silence speaking louder than words ever could. Some simply feel still for the first time, not numb, but finally at peace. Because once you begin to breathe with intention, you stop chasing answers and start resonating with truth. This is the breath's true gift, not control, not performance, but alignment. A return to the rhythm that was always yours, the one you had before they named you, before they told you what to fear, before the world convinced you to hold your breath and forget who you are. Now, with every inhale, you pull yourself home. With every exhale, you shed a layer of the illusion, and without effort, without force, you begin to vibrate like you were always meant to. This is not the end. It is the beginning of something sacred and remembered within your own chest. And if you listen closely, you can already hear the soul exhale. So take one final breath. But this time not to control, not to heal, not to search, just to be. Let the breath fall into your belly like a feather, effortless, gentle, and free. No needing to reach the divine, because you are already touched by it. No needing to fix the soul, because the soul was never broken. Everything you've remembered today, the sacred inhale, the pause between, the ancient rhythm hidden in your chest, it's not something new you've learned. It's something old, something ancient, that you've simply come home to. You've walked through forgotten doorways today. You've listened to muscles, to silence, to pain, and to presence. And perhaps, for the first time in a long while, you didn't try to escape it. That right there is the portal. Not in the temples, not in the scrolls, not in the sky. It's in your breath. It's in your spine. It's in the space between moments where time holds its breath, waiting for you to notice. And maybe tomorrow, or in a moment of despair, you'll forget again. That's okay. The breath will still be here. The soul won't close its doors. Just place your palm gently on your navel. Feel the heat, the stillness, and listen. You don't need rituals to return. You are the ritual. Here on the Spine Gospel, we don't offer salvation. We offer remembrance. Not sermons, but sacred echoes. And when you're ready, when you want to feel again, we'll be right here, breathing with you. Until then, let the breath lead you home. You were never lost, just unlistened to.